It's a great time to be a gamer. With so many video games to play and so many consoles to do it with, there are many games that fall to the wayside. Some of them are bad, and then there are some that are actually good, but sold poorly when they release for some reason or the other. In this video, I will talk about some games that gamers did not buy, but probably should have. We kick things off with Duke Nukem Forever, a game that spent over a decade in development and sold poorly for the PS3 and Xbox 360. Part of the reason it sold poorly was because it began its life back in 1997, when 3D Realms announced it as a sequel to Duke Nukem 3D. In fact, a trailer was revealed at the 1998 E3 that looks nothing like the game we have today, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You see, midway through its development, the developers, 3D Realms, decided to change the Quake 2 engine that they were using to develop the game to the Unreal Engine, so they essentially started the game from scratch. This was happening behind the backdrop of the hype that the game generated at the trailer unveiling at E3 in 2001, and the delay left many gamers scratching their heads, eventually forgetting about the game. In essence, the game was overhyped and, according to critics, underdelivered. But when it released on June 14th of 2011, the game received mixed reviews by the gaming media and fans alike, and some reviewers of the time pointed out the slow load times, the cringe humor, and the clunky controls. Still, there were some reviewers that still enjoyed the game's humor, which included Duke's classic one-liners, pop culture references, and of course, sex. Lots and lots of sex. Needless to say, this game split reviewers into two camps, those who hated it and those who loved it. The gamers, though, were a bit more forgiving to good old Duke, and I am one of them. But I do have to say that some of the humor in this game I found to be a little cringe, like the time when you are in the alien hive and can slap boobs around. And then there's these things. And these things. Mad cringe. But aside from some of the humor, I found Duke Nukem Forever to be a fun experience. The game's combat is satisfying. The levels are linear, but it can be difficult to know where to go, but it's nothing any gamer can't handle. But there are some things in this game that help set it apart from the other shooters of that era, including some weaponry such as the Shrink Ray and the Freeze Ray, which harken back to Duke Nukem 3D sequences where you can shrink down to a tiny Duke and take cover behind jars of condiments, and these awesome monster truck levels where you can do wicked jumps. Then there's of course Duke's humor. As I mentioned earlier, some of the sexual stuff in this game was cringe, but then there were times when Duke dunks on Master Chief.
Got your green power armor over here and ready to go.
Power armor is for pussies.
Well, okay.
Or when he references the Predator, that made me chuckle. Duke has attained rockstar status after the events of the previous Duke Nukem games, and everyone looks up to him. It's a bit over the top, but it's neat seeing all of the artwork in the game tell of Duke's exploits and many adventures. Which is a good segue to talk about the game's graphics. The graphics in this game are actually good, but I did notice some slowdown here and there. The game controls just fine. Your buttons aim, fire, switch weapons, melee attack, run, duck, throw pipe bombs and trip mines, and interact with the things in the world. Your life bar in this game is called your ego, and there are several things to interact with in the levels that will boost your ego so that you can have more life. The activities range from playing pinball, to lifting weights, to finding porno mags and admiring yourself in the mirror. This game has a lot of crazy things like this, such as drinking a beer that can make you stronger, taking steroids that will make you invincible for a short time and power up your melee attack, and you can also use decoys to get the jump on the bosses. The enemies you will be fighting in this game get a makeover from the Duke Nukem 3D game, and I have to say, I'm digging it. The bosses in this game are impressive to look at and a lot of fun to fight. It takes some strategy to kill them, and this is what makes the game a lot of fun as well. Alas, this game did not fly off the shelves when it released. The company that would eventually publish this game, 2K Games, said that the game only sold half of what they were expecting it to sell. But 2K Games' parent company, Take-Two Interactive, stated that the game would eventually prove profitable. Psychonauts is another game that didn't get enough love when it launched in 2005. Despite getting favorable reviews and getting covered in magazines and shows like X-Play, Psychonauts is one of those underappreciated titles that gamers seem to shun. Psychonauts is essentially a platformer with heavy story elements. The game is not for everyone, it's a bit confusing and the humor can be a bit niche, but it's a solid game that grew on me the more I played it. You play as Raz, a poser who wants to become one of the elite mind warriors named Psychonauts. To do this, you must enroll in the Psychonaut training camp and complete a bunch of tasks, fight a lot of enemies, and collect a bunch of stuff. Probably the most interesting aspect of Psychonauts is its story and voice acting. It's pretty solid in this game and gives the game some charm. The items and weapons in this game are unique and can take some getting used to. To become a Psychonaut, you must obtain a series of merit badges that you can obtain by completing the game's missions. The missions largely consist of hopping in the minds of camp instructors and taking on their levels. The game's levels are designed uniquely to the instructor's minds. This game is a platformer to the core that champions exploration and finding objects. It's not for everyone, but the gameplay isn't bad, the storytelling is funny in parts, and the graphics and music add to the fun factor. But for some reason, gamers really didn't flock to this title, and it sold about 400,000 copies at the time of its release in April 2005. And boy did the gaming media love this game. I remember seeing Adam Sessler of XPlay talk about this game as if it were the best game out there. But I too was among the crowd that really didn't give it the time of day, partly because I'm not really into these cutesy looking platformers. The other thing is that I was probably playing games such as God of War and Resident Evil 4, and it's probably the reason why other gamers didn't really give this game a chance either. Despite its initial weak sales, the game has garnered enough of a cult following to merit a sequel in Psychonauts 2. I have yet to play Psychonauts 2, and if you have, let me know in the comments how you like it. I should note that Psychonauts was designed by Tim Schafer, and that's a good segue into the next game. Long before Eddie Munson did an epic solo in the Nether on Stranger Things, another Eddie was tearing it up against brutes in Brutal Legend. But this Eddie, played by Jack Black, is named Eddie Riggs, and he is the hero of a game that most gamers passed on. I am guilty of this too, because it wasn't until this video that I gave this game more than 20 minutes of my time. But I'm glad I played it because this game is charming and is not only for people who love heavy metal, it is for everybody who loves music as well. In Brutal Legend, you play as roadie Eddie Riggs, who is working a show for his band. When you injure yourself and your blood trickles down to this beast that brings it to life. Next thing you know, you are in a different world filled with brutes and other monsters. Much of the world is enslaved by the evil Emperor Daviculus and his general Lionwhite. You meet up with this girl named Ophelia who recruits you to assist her friends Lars Halford and his sister Lita to fight back against the Emperor. This game is a heavy metal music lover's dream, which may explain why this game didn't do so well. The game world is heavily influenced by metal, from the soundtrack to the way that the characters dress and talk, making it one of these games that's more of a niche affair. It's no doubt that games like Guitar Hero played a role in influencing this game, creating a generation of gamers who learned about old school metal by playing on a plastic guitar. But the same fanbase didn't materialize here, at least not at first. The game is a hybrid of an action-adventure game and a real-time strategy game. Most of the fighting you will be doing will be with your axe, and your guitar. And yes, I know that the guitar is sometimes referred to as an axe, but this is one literal axe, and you also play a real guitar. The axe is your quintessential melee weapon, and your guitar serves to electrocute and burn your enemies. The combat in this game is satisfying, and you can lock onto your enemies, strafe around them, and dodge attacks. You can learn combos in this game by buying them from Ozzy Osbourne, who plays the Guardian of Metal. He is a keeper of the Metal Forge. You can purchase these upgrades and upgrade your badass ride, the Deuce, by earning fire tribute through your quests in this game and side missions. The world of Brutal Legend comes straight out of a heavy metal album cover, and you can tell that the game developers really know their stuff. As Eddie, you play solos in this game that can do everything from summon your hot rod to mobilize other metalheads and allowing you to do powerful attacks against your enemies. The solos can be learned at various points in this game and are useful. You pull them off much like a rhythm-based game where you push the buttons at the right time. You can mess up once, but if you mess up twice, the guitar becomes too hot and you can't pull off any of the solos. Ozzy by far is not the only metal musician in the game, and many of the game's characters are voiced by heavy metal gods. Some of them, like Ozzy, have their likeness in this game, like Lemmy. Other characters in this game are inspired by people like David Bowie. The game's soundtrack, which unfortunately I can't show you due to copyright, is stellar and really fits the whole metal theme that this game is going for. While Brutal Legend plays plenty of fan service to fans of the genre, it didn't do so well when it first released back in October of 2009, selling only about 215,000 copies in the US, which was not considered strong. Most of the sales were from the Xbox 360 crowd. But according to Tim Schafer, oh yeah, remember him? He designed Psychonauts, and he also designed this game. The game sold over 1.4 million copies by 2011, and that's a great thing because it means that more people have experienced this game. If you like games like Legend of Zelda, you are going to love Beyond Good and Evil. This is the game that I would have never given a second thought to after looking at the cover. I guess it's true what they say about judging a book, I mean a game, by its cover. Released in 2003 by Ubisoft, Beyond Good and Evil released to various consoles including the GameCube, PS2, and Xbox, and later to the Xbox 360 and PS3. this is a game that not many gamers gave a chance to, but boy they should have, because the gameplay in Beyond Good and Evil is solid and reminiscent of the Legend of Zelda games. You play as Jade, who is sort of in this weird alien world where animals talk and commingle with humans. The world is controlled by the military named Alpha Sections, and they are at war with an alien race named the Doms, who like to kidnap human beings and animals alike and enslave them. As Jade, you join an underground network of spies named Iris, who suspects that the alien section is doing some shady stuff and is actually in cahoots with Doms. You embark on various missions to try and uncover evidence of their wrongdoing and rescue your loved ones from their evil clutches. Beyond Good and Evil can best be described as an action RPG that champions exploration and has some light puzzle solving, mining for items, and assorted quests to keep you busy. You are joined in your adventure by your piggy uncle named Paige. He comes along in this quest and is useful in combat and solving puzzles that require 2 people. Using his rocket boots, Paige can launch enemies in the air, and you can throw them against the wall, at other enemies, or other items such as these crystal shards. The combat in this game is good, not great, mainly because there is no lock-on button. The game sort of kicks into fight mode from exploration mode when an enemy is in front of you. I think it would have been better if it would have handled the combat more like the Legend of Zelda games do. You collect 2 forms of currency. One are orbs that you can use to buy power-ups such as a cannon for your hovercraft, the ability for your hovercraft to jump, and to detect orbs and other hidden items. The other form of currency is transferred as credits. You earn credits in a unique way in this game, and that's by photographing various humans and animals for the Science Society. They pay pretty darn well for photos of animals and humans that you can take throughout your playthrough, and earning this form of currency is a cinch. The orbs are a different story though. Some are dropped by bosses in this game and others are hidden away. You get them naturally by completing quests as well. The other thing about this game is that it's got a really good story, great dialogue, and great characters. I thought, okay, whatever, a talking pig, but it turns out that the piggy is quite lovable and it pained me when he was kidnapped. I won't get into any spoilers here, but this game has some heart. The art style of this game isn't the best I have seen on the systems it released on, but they have their own style and likability. I think this may have hurt the game when it first released. The main character Jade doesn't exactly instill excitement in the game, but she is a blast to play as, and I wish I would have played this game sooner. It's a shame that most gamers, including myself, avoided this game at launch, as there is a lot about this game to love. It sold so poorly after its release in 2003 that to get the sales moving, the publisher slashed the price of the game by 80%. And that is a shame, because this is actually a good game. If you've played it, let me know in the comments how you liked it. It's often said that video games are an art form, and never has that been so apparent than with Okami. For some reason, gamers didn't gravitate towards this game, but they probably should have given it a chance because not only is it a work of art, but it's a fun game that anyone who loves a good action RPG would enjoy. Much like Beyond Good and Evil, Okami plays a lot like the Legend of Zelda games and reminds me quite a bit of the wolf sequences in Twilight Princess. This game has a gimmick though, in that you can use a paintbrush that the game refers to as a celestial brush to interact with the world and to fight enemies. It's pretty clear that the game's developers, Clover Studio, wanted to remain true to the art motif that this game has going for it, which is best described as a watercolor, cel-shaded, Japanese action RPG. You play as a Shinto sun goddess, Okami Amaterasu, in wolf form of course, and it's your job to get rid of the curse that has befallen the land. You are joined on your journey by a bug named Isun, who serves as your guide and gives you helpful tips. As Amaterasu, you take on a variety of quests and talk to numerous characters. You use your paintbrush in this game to solve puzzles and to help people. I was playing this game on the Wii, and the use of the Wiimote as a paintbrush was difficult to learn at first, but I quickly got the hang of it. The combat in this game is satisfying, as it seems that each fight has a purpose. You can avoid fights altogether in this game, but you wouldn't want to, because taking out the enemies gets rid of the curse and will rejuvenate the land. Aside from your rush and jump attacks, you can also slash enemies and create bombs as you fight with your paintbrush. It's a concept that I have not seen before in any action RPG. There's a lot to do and see in this game, and it truly lives up to the praise that many critics gave it. But for some reason or the other, perhaps because of the art style or the fact that you play as a wolf, gamers didn't bother with this game when it released on multiple consoles in 2006, and it sold poorly. But did you know that this game was awarded the Guinness World Record for most critically acclaimed video game starring an animal character? The great reviews that this game received, as well as other accolades, spawned an HD version of the game for the PS3, PS4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch. This game has since sold nearly 4 million copies throughout its life on the different consoles. Have you played this game? And that's going to be it for the Big Retro Show. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you drop a comment, leave a like, and consider subscribing to the channel. And I will see you next time on the Big Retro Show.